Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and this is my 6 gigahertz Ryzen 7 9850X3D. So basically, I tried to do the same thing like I did with other Ryzen 9000 CPUs on this channel. After I finished making my overclocking guide, I also tried to chase 6 gigahertz. Now, I would say with this 9850X3D, it was a lot easier than with the previous chips. Even in this screenshot, you can see that multiple cores. I think all of the cores except for cores 3, 6, and 7 are above 6 gigahertz, which didn't really happen with my other chips. With my other chips, I really had to find the exact core that could boost over 6 gigahertz. And also, this is like running 6047 megahertz, so a little bit higher than, barely breaching the 6 gigahertz. So what I want to do in this video is basically show you how I got it. Basically show you my settings. Now, before or in previous videos, I always ran through the entire BIOS configuration before trying 6 gigahertz. But in this case, I actually got it relatively quickly. So I forgot to walk through the entire BIOS. But what we can do is we can first have a look at the settings that I used in OC strategy number 4 of my SkatterBencher guide, which is the ones with using external clock generator, so with asynchronous e-clock. And those were the base settings that I then used to also go and try 6 gigahertz. So how about we start reviewing that BIOS configuration from OC strategy number 4. All right, let me pull up that video. All right, so this is the BIOS configuration, at least the start of it. First thing I did in that OC strategy is obviously enabling Expo. In this case, I use Expo 1 because it has a 1 or 2 memory timings that are slightly adjusted, which help improve a little bit the performance. And then, as I mentioned, we switch to asynchronous e-clock mode. Now, in this overclocking strategy, I run it at 103 megahertz, which basically means that all of the frequency points of our VF curve is going to be extended by plus 3%, going from 100 megahertz to 103 megahertz. So in the case of the 9850X3D, which has a boost frequency of 5,650 megahertz, it will be, well, whatever 5,650 times 1.03 is. Then in terms of the memory frequency, I think I couldn't run 8,000 tunes, so I switched to DDR5 7800, which is really a minor difference in performance. But then I did load these memory presets, which is basically a bunch of optimized memory timings, which gives me a lot of extra performance. You can see exactly how much extra performance I gain from that in my SkatterBencher guide. And then we basically do the basic stuff, going into the AMD overclocking menu and then trying to set up our precision boost overdrive. But before that, of course, increase the F clock a little bit as well. The F clock is a bit of a topic in the enthusiast community because people always want to run. Actually, there's two types of people. One type of person wants to run it as high as possible and then run into a wall and realize there's actually not that much you can do to increase the F clock frequency. Voltage adjustments barely help. It's really kind of silicon lottery. And then there's another group of people that wants to run it at a specific frequency in sync with the U clock and the mem clock. Now, in my experience, higher frequency is always better, even though there's sometimes a small delay because the clocks are not exactly in sync. Higher frequency just always yields higher performance for me. Anyway, so we go into the Precision Boost Overdrive submenu, and here we do the usual things: set the limits to motherboard, set scalar to 10x. I've seen a number of comments of people on my YouTube channel saying, hey, why are you setting it to 10x? This is going to significantly reduce the lifetime of your CPU. The truth is that for every overclocking guide, at least for the recent ones, I always track what's the difference in operating voltage between using 1x and 10x. And in some cases, it's no more than 10 millivolts in an all-core light workload. So increasing the operating voltage by 10 millivolt. Of course, in theory, it will shorten the lifespan, but in my opinion, it won't have that much of an impact. So I'm perfectly comfortable running 10x. Now that's with the most recent CPU, so I didn't check out what the exact behavior was on Ryzen 7000 or Ryzen 5000 or going even further backwards. I'm just talking about, what I see when I track the maximum allowed operating voltage using 1x scaler or 10x scaler. And then we get a little bit into the overclocking part. So obviously, I set the Fmax boost clock override to positive, meaning that I can extend the frequency headroom, but I don't set it to plus 200. I only set it to plus 75. And the reason for that is because we've already increased the Fmax using our external clock with our asynchronous E-clock. Basically, what's going to happen here is that our Fmax of 5,650 megahertz first gets added with 75 megahertz. So we're at 5,725 megahertz. And then that gets multiplied by 1.03, our new reference clock, right? And so our our boost clock is already going to be higher than what we would normally get with plus 200. If we use plus 200, it would be 5,650 plus 5 plus 200 equals 5,850. And in this case, it'll be about 5,860 megahertz if I remember correctly. My spontaneous math is not that great. And then lastly, of course, we set our curve shaper. Now, curve shaper allows us to manipulate the VF curve or kind of the VF spectrum in a number of places. So it's not just one undervolt like we do with curve optimizer, but we can set multiple ones. So usually what we'll do is we'll set a pretty aggressive undervolt at medium and low temperature. We'll usually leave the minimum frequency as it is, because when we're running our workload, it's never reaching that really low frequency. And so for high and for maximum frequency, then it's really a matter of what do we need to get it stable. In this case, I needed a positive frequency on the high temperature side because um, let's say AVX workloads like Y Cruncher or 7-zip were crashing with an undervolt. However, when we go higher in the frequency curve, it wasn't really a problem. The reason for that is because our AVX 512 workloads never reach the upper end of the curve. So the upper end of the curve is really only used by light workloads. And so we can undervolt more for the light workloads, and then we can't do it for the heavier AVX 512 workloads, which are using a different part of the VF curve. So that's why we have this kind of an awkward setup where we use a positive curve shaper for the high frequency and then a negative curve shaper for the max frequency. So anyway, this was the BIOS settings for the OC strategy number 4. Let's now have a look at what I did to achieve the 6 gigahertz. All right, so we're back into the BIOS. So basically, as you will see here, I'm going to load my PBO E-clock preset, which is the one that we used before. So you can see exactly here, right? I use 103 megahertz BCLK with 7800 megahertz memory, or DDR5 7800, not 7800 megahertz. And then the only thing I really changed is set the B clock to 103.2. Which you might think is kind of weird if we're at the Fmax of 5,860. Why only 103.2, like a small bump? Well, because we can change the settings also in the operating system. So let's now boot into the operating system. All right. All right, we finally made it to our Windows loading screen. All right, so let's see what I did here. It's been a while, so I can't quite remember. All right. Not bench. Okay, there we go. So NopBench is basically an application that runs a number of NOP operations or no operations. It's kind of the lightest workloads that we can use to, let me pause this here, that we can use to get the CPU to boost to its highest possible frequency. So usually that will hit to Fmax. It's a really light workload. It's not really a benchmark or a stress test per se, but it gives us an indication of how high our frequency is boosting. So then I open CPUs I. And here in the ini file, I change it to XLC mode equals 1. Now, the main difference between XLC equals 0 and XLC equals 1 is that if it's set to 0, when CPU Z tries to gather what the frequency is, it will load a pretty heavy workload that does an all-core stress test. But when you use XLC equals 1, it's basically going to run no workload at all, just a bunch of them to check what the actual frequency is. And of course, if you want to see the highest possible boost frequency, then you can't have an all-core workload. All right, just open it again probably. You can see also that the knobs per second on the left-hand side show that we're running over 5.8 gigahertz, which will be the same like our core effective clock, basically. There we go. And all right, so here I select core 1, so then it will actually get the frequency of core 1 to display in the CPU Z page. And so here you can see like we're boosting 5.881, a little bit above the 5.860 that we get with 103.0 E clock. Right, this is it's called Work Tool. This is the tool that Shamino from Asus RG provides also on the RG forums. And it's basically kind of an advanced tool that you can use for setting a bunch of stuff, including you can set a bunch of the precision boost parameters from the operating system. So it's a really, really handy tool. So in this case, like I go for an all-core curve optimizer change. Right now it's set to 0 because we've obviously set the undervolt using curve shaper, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to stack the curve optimizer on top of our curve shaper settings, and then basically try to undervolt more and more and more. What it does when we undervolt, it's basically lowering the entire VF curve. Now, the reason why we're only boosting to 5,850 megahertz is because there's a voltage limit. And you can kind of see this in the upper right corner. If you look at the core vids in hardware info, maximum is 1.39 volt. The VF curve extends beyond that. It extends beyond 1.39 volt. It's just that the precision boost algorithm limits us to 1.39. So when we undervolt, we actually pull some of the frequency points below that threshold, and then we can boost to a higher frequency. So that's exactly what we'll do now, right? In this case, what do we set here? -5. Right. One more thing here is that we did set a plus 75 if max boost override, which basically is now capping the maximum possible frequency. So you can see here I did the undervolt and I expected a frequency boost to boost higher. It doesn't because I forgot about this if max boost override. So that's what we'll change right now. So in this case, I set 5,750 megahertz in this field here. That's the equivalent of plus 100. And so you can see, right, we set plus 100, which is 25 megahertz higher than the original plus 75, which we set in the BIOS. that's an increase of 25 megahertz, and we can now boost to over 5.9 gigahertz, basically also a jump of 25 megahertz. So now I do plus 200, another 100 megahertz added to it, and immediately we get to 6 gigahertz here. Like that's the reason why I kind of forgot to do the whole BIOS preview. And I think in this case it crashed basically. So then I got the validation on the second attempt. So all right, we go back into the BIOS. Oh, now I remember that maybe I didn't record the second. I think I didn't record the second attempt. Anyway, you saw that I got 6 gigahertz on my first attempt. Didn't get the validation, but then after I did this, I did get the validation, which was basically this screenshot. This link will be available once the NDA lifts, and I'll put it in the description as well. Hope you found this video informative, and yeah, overall I would say I'm not actually too surprised that the 9850 X3D can do 6 gigahertz so easily. And my observation, what I found was that the 9850 X3D is particularly good in low voltage, low temperature situations, so it can boost to much higher frequencies. And as you'll see from my SkatterBencher guide, the actual load in heavy workloads is not too dissimilar to that of the 9800 X3D. But yeah, you know, light loads, it can boost much higher, much more easily. All right, that's it for this video. See you next time.